which is here. The first thing that we really want to do with Photoshop is tell you where it came from. You know, Photoshop has been around, believe it or not, from the late 80s. And it was put together by a couple of gentlemen, photographers, that wanted to take digital images at that time, scan them in, make them digital and scan them in from an analogical source, and enhance them and recolor things. And just, it was never done for drawing or manipulation or anything like that. It was always going to be a photo editing piece of software, and that's where it derives from, the late 80s. I've been using it since I think version 2 came out, in the days when it was very cheap, etc. So I'm sure you can Google it and find out exactly where, you know, it was made, when it was made, what it was for, etc. What we're going to do with this webinar is we're going to dive right into Photoshop and just get using it immediately. Most people are presented with a black screen here that is dominant, with all these different commands, etc., that nobody knows anything about. All these, if we look down, if we just run a piece of software here, okay, and all these different icons at the side here that you can see, you know, people are bemused by them. There are a lot of icons pertaining to each of the icons that are here. You know, they appear up here, and that can be confusing as well as the icons in this work palette can be very confusing. We're going to start from the beginning, okay, and what the first thing we're going to do is we're going to just start a new file. So what's all this about then? Well, the width and the height of the image, that speaks for itself. It's untitled, so I'll call it Demo 1. Okay, that's the Demo 1 right at the top here. I've just named it. The custom type, it's custom, so I can change everything here that I need to. I'm just going to make it, I'll make it 2000 by 2000 by 300. So why 300 and not 72 dpi? Well, 300 is for print, yeah? But if it was going to be printed out on a home printer or sent to a vendor to be printed, you would also want to make it CMYK. Well, why CMYK, not RGB? RGB are the colours that are represented on the screen, yeah? And if you print it, you can print out an RGB photo, and if you printed out an RGB photo, then it would differ, the colours would be there, but it would differ a bit in saturation and in hue from what you see on the screen. So RGB is for the screen, and CMYK is for a printout, for something that's a hard copy. We're going to keep it at RGB at the moment, not to confuse it. So anything that is going to go to the net should be 72 dpi. If you're sending it to the net where people are using fancy iPads, etc., then you can say that that could be 144 dpi. So if it's 72 dpi and the screen is only 1080p, why would we need 2000 by 2000? Well, it's always easier to take an image down in size when it's a high resolution than it is to bring an image up in size. Okay, we're going to create this image, RGB color. It's going to be white, right? The background contents are going to be white, right? Color mode RGB. Resolution, we're going to make it 300. Best resolution we can have. Width 2000 by 2000. Okay, that's what we're going to do. We're not going to move into the custom palette or anything yet. We're just going to hit OK there, and we're going to bring up this square 2000 by 2000 image. There's nothing on it, it's just white. So why don't we open an image? Because this tutorial is basically going to be about selections. You know, what type of selections we have. Yeah. So let's open an image as well to do that. So if we go File to the top and just open, there are many ways to do this, right? And I can go here and I can say I've got a couple here of George somewhere that I brought out today. So I've got a couple here of George. Right, it's in the air. So here's one here, right? It's in the air. So the first thing we're going to do with this image is we're going to have a look at the resolution of it. Yeah. So to look at the resolution of it, we can go either down here to the bottom and we can click on it, and it says here, it says 300 pixels per inch. This image is grayscale. The first thing we need to do with this image is we need to go up to Image and Mode and change it from grayscale, okay, to RGB color, because that's what we're working with here. RGB color, everything on the screen. Okay, so we're going to do that, RGB color. Nothing seems to have happened. So this is Photoshop C15.5. Okay, 2016 hasn't been released yet, and if it has, I haven't updated this in any way. This is a Creative Cloud. Okay, it's not standalone. You have to download it and it updates. Obviously you go to various places within the menu here and you can update it. Okay, so we're not going to update it. I've updated it and everything's good. So the first thing we want to do is get rid of this image. Get rid of this signature. We want to get rid of that shadow, etc. Then we want to take George out of this, select George out of this, and put him somewhere else where we can control the background. Okay, so first thing we're going to do, there's a little padlock over here, and that locks this to a background layer. So we don't want a background layer, we want it to be on its own layer. Okay, so we just click on the padlock and automatically it changes to a layer. A lot of people, another way to do it is to go down and grab it, take it down to the new layer palette. It'll create a new copy of it, and then you could delete that one. Okay, but it's with CC, it's very easy just to click the padlock and that's you got it. So we're going to take a copy of this anyway, because we don't ever want to destroy the original. Okay, just in case we make a mistake, everybody makes mistakes. We never want to destroy the original. We always want to keep that going as long as we can. And in the end, when we're happy with everything, we can bin it. We don't need it. So the first thing we're going to do here, and I'm just going to, some commands for you. Control 0 will, and that's control on a Mac, and command on a Mac, control on a Windows PC. So command down, you get a little hand, go over here and you can choose that hand, okay, and you can move it around. So we're interested in this writing down here that we're going to get rid of. So one of the tools that came with, I think it was Photoshop CS5 it came out with, was the healing brushes, etc. that enabled you to paint over something and it would heal it. They're over here. Spot healing brush tool, just hit J, you know, for to get it if you wanted to hit J, or you can go over here and you can select it, the spot healing brush tool, and if you clicked the spot healing brush tool and that little dot there, you can see it's just tidying it up. But we don't need to bother about that shadow because we're going to get rid of it. We are mainly interested in the writing, and if we start to do a little bit of this writing at a time, we can see that we can basically really get rid of this. Now if the brush is too small, then the left arrow bracket, the left square bracket will take it down in size, and the right square bracket will bring it up in size. I like to keep it fairly small, but enough to cover what I want to cover with it. So all I'm doing is just wiping it over like that, and then letting the program use its calculations to get rid of the writing. That's all I'm doing here. Nothing fancy. This is what Photoshop is best at. Restoring old photos. So we could get rid of the signature like this. Okay. I'm doing quite well with it. So we'll get rid of that. Let's go down and take George's signature out. Remember that we have this, we're working on a copy of this. Okay. And on a Mac or the Alt key on Windows and hold that down, we can select a target piece of this canvas that we're going to use to cover this image, to cover the word Formby. And let's say we take that there. All I've done is held the Option key down and I'm clicking on a part of that canvas. I have then set the target point for this brush. That is what it's going to copy on top of the writing. So if I move this brush over the writing now, you can see I'm getting a copy of something. Yeah. And all I need to do is literally brush over it, little bit at a time. Brush over it. Yeah. At any time, you can see the X here. There's an X there. At any time at all. Right, at any time at all. I'm doing quite well here with this though. But at any time at all, I can say, well, I want some of this colour in that. So I can hold the Alt key down again, Option on a Mac, click on that, go back up here, and you can see the X. Well, you won't see it now, but there's an X there. If you can just make it out on my screen, there's an X there. It does a very good job, the clone stamp tool, if you take your time with it. We don't need that, Steve. If you take your time with it, it does a very, very good job. Not as good as the healing brush for this, but nonetheless a very good job. So we're left with a couple of patches, some patches here, some patches there. I'm going very slow at this so that you can get the gist of it. We're left with some patches. We can tidy them up because this is built into CS5, CS6 and CC. And if we go back up to the healing brush and click and hold it, we can see a thing here called the patch tool. Okay? And this is what it says. You just literally draw, move it out the way to another area, and it will integrate into the canvas. You see that? So that's where I move it up. I'm going to shoot back to the spot healing brush for this. And I'm just going to lower the brush a little bit. And I'm going to make sure that I tidy this image up. Because let's say Tony wanted it for one of his new covers. I'm going to make sure that I tidy. I'm really bothered about this over here. At this side, I'm not bothering about this over here because George is going to be cut out from this. We're going to take George out of this altogether. So again, I'm just using the healing brush. It's in CS6, CS5 and CC. I'm using CC, right? And I'm sure it's in Elements. I might be wrong, but I'm sure it's in Elements. If it's not in Elements, Caroline, then you would revert to the clone stamp tool. Okay? And again, all you would do is just hold the Option key down, click a reference point, move that reference point over, and then click. And now you can see we're actually tidying up the clone stamp tool. And I'm going to make sure that I'm not taking any of these buttons, etc. I'm just going to tidy this image up. I'm not really bothering about what's out here. Right, I'm just bothering about George himself. Tidy that bit up, get rid of that. So that we've got a clear. Okay. Right. So what we want to do now, we've got George, here he is in all his glory. Again, to zoom that out, there's a couple of ways you can do it. You can press the zoom tool over here. You could press that, right? And you could zoom in and out with it, right? You could do that. The easiest way to do it, the easiest way is just to hit Command 0, okay, and it'll bring George right out there. So there's a lot of this image that we don't need, a lot that we don't need. For instance, if we go to the Lasso Tool, that's up here, third from the top, okay, Lasso Tool, we don't need that. So we can come right round here and we can hit that, okay, nothing but transparency. So I'm just going to leave that one off, but turn that one on so that I can see what I've got here. So there's a lot that we don't need. Back to the Lasso Tool. We will go in as close as we can to George, round about here. I'm not really bothering about the selection. I just want to get all that stuff that we're not going to use out of there. Just delete it. Sorry. Let me bring that back in. That's fine. Let me bring that, do that. And what I'm going to do, sorry, I'm just going to do that again. I'm going to come up here and I'm just going to select George. Not bothering about going into here. Do that. And I'm going to hit the delete key. Okay. So I've got George here. Right. So what I can do now is I can say, well, I don't need all those transparent pixels. Everything that I'm doing here, guys, everything that I'm doing here, I am doing for the sake of brevity. You should be watching, you can watch these will always be on YouTube, you can refer to them. This is episode 1, we'll get a format started, but I thought I would go right into the deep end and show you all the tools and the way that they work. It's very, very easy. So you could go around here and you could select everything, copy George into another, but an easier way to get rid of all these unwanted transparent pixels is to go up to Image and Trim. So we can trim anything that we want. We could pick a colour, for instance, okay, and what we'll do, we could put a colour in the top left, say it was all a green and it was a blue or something behind there and it was all the same colour. We could do that, but in this case it's transparent pixels, and we can hit OK, and now that comes down in size, and the one below it, because this is one document. Now the thing about this is it's done away with the signature. So how would we sort that? Well, we've made a mistake. Yeah, I've not made a mistake. I've done the mistake intentionally. So I'm going to go back, and all I've done there was I hit Command and Z to come back. If you want to undo, you can undo here, right? Step backwards, okay? Command Z will do your last command, right? Copy this if you've done what I've done and not got all the signature. Hold that down, do that. And all I'm going to do here is just hit Command J, right? So what that's done, if I turn that off, it's made a copy of this, right? So what I'm going to do now is move George below that layer. Turn on George again, take the signature and just move the signature into the middle, because we can turn it off and we can always use it later. We can even move it to the bottom, right? So again, we can go up to the top, we can go Image, Trim, and now we're trimming all the pixels round about George, right? So we've got George here, and we've always got our original there if we need it. So and at the same time, we have got our signature, okay? So what do we want to do with George? Well, obviously we don't want him in that horrible background. We want him out of there. Before we do anything else, we want to take George to his own layer and make sure that he is, you know, selected properly. There's a load of ways we can do this, guys. So what we're going to do is take another copy of that layer. This is going to become our selection layer. We can even change that to selection. Okay. Selection, if I can spell. Okay, so we can do that. So we have George here selected. Okay, let me see if any of you are online at the moment. Well, I don't see anybody chatting to me, but you should be. There's 6 watching. There's nobody chatting yet. Okay, but you can send me a message and say, hi Steve, I'm here. I think there's about a 7 or 8 second delay. Hi Steve, I'm here. It's me, Peter, Caroline. Okay, so back to this. I think when we do it the next time, I'll set up maybe Facebook chat or something, so you can be watching it on the TV and chatting in your iPad, something like that. Anyway, this is the very first live stream I've done, so you need to stay with me, guys, okay? I know there's a few watching because I can see them here. Yeah, I can see them here. Right, so what we're going to do with this layer, we're going to turn that layer off. But what we're going to do with this layer is we're going to start to enhance the contrast a bit so that we can see the side of George's pants, the side of his jacket. Yeah, we're okay till we get to this shadow area at the back here. You know, this shadow area, and then it goes a bit haywire. There's a couple of ways to select George, and I'm going to show you both ways. So the first thing we can do is we can say, well, let's have a look at levels. So we are going to put a levels adjustment layer above our selection layer. There, it's there. And we're going to hold the Alt key down, or the Option key in a Mac, and we're going to click in between them, and that will make it affect the layer directly below it. So there should be a little arrow there that tells you it's selecting the layer directly below it. Okay, so let's open that back up. Double click on the icon for levels, and let's start to mess around with it. So now I'm getting some nice contrast with George. That's bleaching out nicely. I can bring this in a bit. That's even better, right? Because I'm going to make a selection out of this. That's fantastic. Okay, that's good. So with this, we can right click and say merge down. So we have got this one, that's our original, and that's George's. Contrast and the brightness is a bit higher on this. So what we're going to do here is we are going to magic wand. So if you've got the magic wand, hold the magic wand down and choose the quick selection tool. Now again, right square bracket to bring the size of it up. And all we're going to do is we're going to select George. Don't worry if it selects that black bit, I'm not bothered about that, but make sure that you get George and his face and everything in there. There's his ear going in. Okay, there's his hand going in. So that's quite a good selection. That's not too bad. So there we've got George, we've got him selected, and we'll not refine the mask or anything like that, nothing like that. What we're going to do now is we are going to use the layer mask at the bottom here. Okay, right here. It's the layer mask. It's the third one in from the bottom. And we're going to click that. So if you can see now, we get this mask. But okay, if I close that one off, we get this mask with George in it. And there's a few transparent pixels. That's what we want. But we still want rid of that shadow. So this is where we have to use our pen tool and go in and select it. So if you hit Command 1, we'll bring our George up to 100% so that we can see him. And we're going to take the pen tool, so we can hit P and we get the pen tool up here. And what we're going to do is we're going to go inside his trouser legs, and we are literally going to pull there. So when you get to the top of this triangle, which is there, you want to hold the Alt key down and twirl that last one round. Okay, just twirl it round. You can see me twirling it round. Hold the Alt key down, and that's you moving now in the direction to go down the way, if that wasn't obvious. And again, I'm just taking my time. I can do this a lot faster, but I'm taking my time for the benefit of you guys that are watching. There's 12 watching. And coming over here, ways you can do it. Select, see, I can just see the edge of his uniform, his tunic here. And all I'm doing is just bringing that in, right, like that. I'm just bringing that down the side of his trousers. Okay, so coming down here, and I can just see the edge of them, and put one out there, come right up to the top again, one there, and close it off. The next stage, you know what the next stage is, right click on it and make a selection. Again, feather it with one radius and then hit the delete key. So Command D. So what have we got? We've got George now perfectly cut out from that background. Yeah, and it really does make a difference, you know, if you can replace George with your own background. So I could go on and colour George, etc. Go on and make sure that he's all in colour. So let's have a look. First of all, we've got our selection here. That's sitting right here. So if we go and have a look at the mask for it. Okay, and to look at the mask, you'd hold the Alt key down. That's the Option key on the Mac. And there is your mask. Basically, that is your selection mask. So you could, in effect, turn that off, put that in on. You could hold down the Command key and you could select George from there. Yeah. Select that layer. Hit Command J to put him on a new layer. And again, you've got George cut out. So this is great because this gives us a full selection. Okay. We don't need that anymore. We don't need that anymore. Right. We've got our original. There he's there. And we've got George on his own now. So what are we going to do with him? Well, we've got him here now, so we may as well do something with him. Let's go inside and tidy up George again. Make sure that his uniform is, well, what would it be? Fit for parade. And we'll use a spot healing brush, and I'm just going to go in here. I'm going to tidy up those little spots on that. It really does make a job of them, guys. I'm going to go in here and do that. Right. Just go over his tunic. Make sure that there's no dust spots. I think that's one of his buttons there, so we'll go over this. That's his, we don't need it. Get rid of that. Probably rid of that and that. And we're tidying them up. So that's one form of selection. That's what we've done there. We've taken a black and white grayscale image, we've brought it into Photoshop, and we've cut him out. Yeah. Now he's in black and white. We can colour him. That's not a problem. That we'll leave that for another webinar where I'm going to colour George in. There won't be enough room or enough time tonight, but we're going to do that. So we've got George in here. That's fine. Let's see what else we can do with him. If we go to the crop tool, we can make the image a bit larger. Okay. So we would like George to be over the right hand side, and we'll put some text on the left, right? So if you hold the Option key, you can come out equidistant from the center. Okay, this is the crop tool, so we can do that and put that there. We can also put a bit of headroom on him, just a little bit, not much, like there. And the tick up the top is basically to commit our changes to this photo. So we're going to click that, and we've committed the changes. We've made it a bit bigger. So what we can do now is we can take George and we can just slide him over. Now if we slide him over holding the shift key, he'll slide over in a line. So we can slide him over like that, right? And let's make the other side of it just that little bit wider. We can get some text in, okay? Right, so let's think of a background. Best way to do a background, go to Google and just type in, say, something like concrete. I'm doing it in the background here, but say with concrete texture, bring it up, and we get loads of these concrete textures, okay? The next thing we want to do, we'll just pull this off of Google, but the next thing we want to do is we want to go to search tools and we want to make the size large. Why not? Why not go for a nice large one? So there's some of them really extremely large. Here's one here that's nearly 6,000 pixels wide, you know, so we don't need that. So we can go for something that's got a bit of texture in it, but not too much. We don't want George flying all over the place. But let's take this one. Now let's take this one, right? So we'll have a look at that, and let's take something else that's contrasty, like this one, and we'll have a look at that. So we've got these two images. So let's take that first image, right click on it and copy the image, okay? As easy as that. So that's telling me to save that one. That's fine, we can do that. Let's save it. And we'll copy that image again. Copy image, that was the first one we done. And up the shift key down, it'll flip in 45-degree increments, like that, okay? So now we have that there. Let's just move it into the middle. We can even stretch it out a little bit. We can bring it in, okay? We can do that. And then we can move it below George. That's important. We can move it below George. Now don't like all these black specks. You could go around it with, you could turn George off for a moment, and you could go around it with this and that and the next thing, cleaning it up. I'm not going to waste any time with that. I'm going to use Photoshop the way that Photoshop should be used. So what I'm going to do is I am going to make sure that I use the filters in Photoshop, and I'm just going to hit blur, and it's just going to be a Gaussian blur, nothing fancy, right, but certainly not that high. I'm going to bring it down, bring it up a bit, and just blur it just enough, because I'm bringing another image in a minute. So we're going to OK that, right? We can always go back to it later, it doesn't matter. But if you've noticed something, I've actually destroyed this texture that I brought in, yeah? When you're editing photographs, you try not to destroy anything. So again, using the Command Alt and Z, that will be Command Alt and Z, or Command Option and Z, right? You can step backwards and it'll take the blur off. Now I want blur on that. I want it to be blurred, right? So, but I don't want it to destroy this texture. So I'm going to right click on the texture and I'm going to convert it to a smart object. Nothing changes, but watch this. Once I go back up and put the blur back on, yeah, the blur will go on it, right? It will go on it. Smart, that's fine. Smart filters. So blending options, blur. I've got blending options for this, cancel. Let's do away with that. Okay. Edit smart filter. I'm going to delete that smart filter. So if I double click in this, yeah, it wasn't blur, it's Gaussian blur. So I want to go in here and I want to choose Gaussian blur. So I get my blur back up, I'll put that to 14. I get the blur back up, but this time, if I ever want the blur off, I can just turn it off. Yeah, but we are going to put another texture over the top of this, and we saved that texture off. So here we go. Let's open that texture up, and it's somewhere in here. Let's find out if we can find it. There, it's there. That's the texture. So we're going to open that up, right? And what we're going to do is click on the padlock to make it a layer. Then we are going to push it up to this, hold the shift key down and pull it in, right? Now another way to do this, let's get rid of that. Hit the bin button at the bottom, the little bin icon, hit that and I'll get rid of it. Another way to do that, yeah, and then right